Hello, my name is Xavier Robert, coming to you live from Uyo, the capital city of Akwa Ibom State. A very good afternoon to you. And today on World View, former President Donald Trump charged by a New York grand jury with 34 felony counts of falsifying business records in indictment unsealed Tuesday. Now, Taliban orders bars Afghan women from working for the United Nations. This is according to the organization. At least 4 children killed by man wielding hatchet who forced his way into kindergarten in city of Blumenau, southern Brazil. The details of these stories and more in a moment. First on Worldview today, the United States has flown nuclear-capable B-52 bombers to the Korean peninsula in a show of strength against North Korea as concerns grow that Pyongyang might conduct a nuclear test. Now, South Korea's Ministry of National Defense said the long-range bombers took part in joint aerial drills with U.S. and South Korean fighter jets over the Korean peninsula. Wednesday's deployment was the first of U.S. B-52 bombers to the peninsula in a month. Lieutenant General Park Hae-sik, commander of the South Korean Air Force Operation Command, said in a statement that the drills show the strong resolve of the South Korea-U.S. alliance and its perfect readiness to respond to any provocation by North Korea swiftly and overwhelmingly. The South Korean and U.S. militaries have been expanding their combined military drills in response to North Korea's nuclear and missile threats. In a separate development, former President Donald Trump was charged by a New York grand jury with 34 felony counts of falsifying business records in an indictment unsealed Tuesday, with prosecutors detailing an alleged years-long scheme to use hush money payments to suppress damaging information before the 2016 election. In a historic, highly choreographed appearance that followed strict security protocols, Trump pleaded not guilty to the charges at a hearing in a lower Manhattan courtroom, becoming the first former president to face criminal prosecution. He has denied all wrongdoing and said District Attorney Alvin Bragg, a Democrat, is motivated by politics in bringing the case. In a 16-page indictment and accompanying statement of facts, prosecutors said Trump orchestrated a scheme with others to influence the 2016 presidential election by identifying and purchasing negative information about him to suppress its publication and benefit the defendant's electoral prospects. Meanwhile, Donald Trump has said the U.S. is allegedly going to hell in a defiant address after pleading not guilty to falsifying business records to hide damaging information ahead of the 2016 election. The former president was charged with 34 counts in a Manhattan court in New York on Tuesday. These relate to a hush money payment to porn star Stormy Daniels, who says they had an affair. Trump is the first U.S. president in history to face a criminal trial. He said that the alleged fake case was simply part of a Democratic conspiracy to interfere with next year's presidential election in which he is a running mate. Now, earlier, he sat stony-faced and silent for the nearly hour-long proceedings before Judge Owen Merton, speaking out loud only in response to the judge's questions and to enter his plea of not guilty. Trump said nothing to reporters as he left court. The case against the former president hinges on a hush money payment of $130,000 made before the 2016 presidential election. While such a payment is not illegal, spending money to help a presidential campaign but not disclosing it violates federal campaign finance law. His former lawyer, Michael Cohen, who turned against his former boss, has said he made the payment at Trump's direction. Away from that now, a Taliban order has barred Afghan women from working for the United Nations. This is according to the organization. The UN said the Taliban had informed them verbally, but there had not yet been written communication of the move. The UN has told its Afghan staff, men and women, not to report to work for 48 hours until it has clarity on the matter in meetings with the Taliban. There has been an increasing clampdown on women's freedoms since the Taliban seized power in Afghanistan in 2021. The UN has called the Taliban order unacceptable and frankly inconceivable. Female workers play a vital role in on-the-ground aid operations, particularly in identifying other women in need. The UN has been working to bring humanitarian aid to 23 million people in Afghanistan, which is reeling from a severe economic and humanitarian crisis. Foreign female workers are exempt from the ban, but if implemented, this would be the most significant test of the future of UN operations in Afghanistan and the relationship between the organization and the Taliban government. A sad note now, at least 4 children have been killed by a man wielding a hatchet who forced his way into a kindergarten in the city of Blumenau in southern Brazil. This is according to local officials. The man reportedly forced his way into the crèche. A 5th child has reportedly been seriously injured and is being treated in hospital. Police told local media that the attacker had surrendered and is reportedly in police custody. Away from that now, the husband of former First Minister Nicola Sturgeon has been arrested in connection with an investigation into Scottish National Party finances. Peter Morrow, aged 58, is being questioned after being taken into police custody on Wednesday morning. Police Scotland said officers were carrying out searches at a number of addresses as part of the investigation. Morrow resigned as the party's chief executive last month, a post he had held since 1999. He has been married to Sturgeon since 2010. Now, Sturgeon stood down as First Minister last month and was last week succeeded by Humza Yousaf. The new First Minister said it was a difficult day for the SNP. Yousaf added that the party has agreed to carry out a review on governance and transparency. The Arab League is set to hold an emergency meeting to discuss an Israeli police raid on the Al-Aqsa Mosque in Jerusalem that left at least 12 Palestinians injured. As Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said, he was working to maintain the status quo at the holy site. The Arab League meeting was called by Jordan, Egypt, and Palestinian officials, with tensions remaining high in Jerusalem since Israeli police attacked worshippers in the Al-Aqsa Mosque compound overnight on Wednesday during the holy month of Ramadan. The raids continued into the morning when Israeli forces were once again seen assaulting and pushing Palestinians out of the compound and preventing them from praying before Israelis were allowed in under police protection. The League had earlier condemned the attack, with Secretary General Ahmed Abul-Gheit saying in a statement that the extremist approaches that control the policy of the Israeli government will lead to widespread confrontations with the Palestinians if they are not put to an end. Away from that, now French President Emmanuel Macron and European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen are set to arrive in China for a 3-day state visit that will see them meet with Chinese President Xi Jinping. Macron will be accompanied by a delegation of more than 50 CEOs and meet with the French business community, but all eyes will be on how he and von der Leyen discuss the war in Ukraine with the Chinese leadership. Zuzana Frerensky, an associate research fellow at Sweden's Institute for Security and Development Policy, told media that the primary issue that Macron and von der Leyen will probably want to push on is to help get some support from China in dealing with Russia and to help advance on that front. China is officially neutral on the war, but has propped up Russia economically and diplomatically in the face of Western sanctions. Xi also has the ear of Russian President Vladimir Putin, with whom he shares a close friendship spanning more than a decade. In March, the duo signed a Sino-Russian strategic partnership during Xi's state visit to Moscow. At the G20 summit in November, Macron called for China to play a greater mediation role in the war, but Beijing has yet to advance its role beyond issuing a 12-point peace plan that has received a lukewarm response in Kiev and Western capitals. In a separate development, Pakistan's Supreme Court has declared the country's poll panel's decision to delay the assembly elections in 2 provinces as unconstitutional. The top court on Tuesday ordered the government to hold snap polls in the country's most populous province of Punjab on May 14. The court's verdict followed a petition filed by the main opposition Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf (PTI) party led by former Prime Minister Imran Khan. Khan's party had challenged the Election Commission of Pakistan's ECP decision to delay the Punjab polls from April 30 through October 8 after the government refused to give funds to conduct the exercise, citing the economic crisis. After the break, one of the world's biggest criminal marketplaces used by online fraudsters to buy passwords has been closed down in a global law enforcement crackdown. Do stay with us for details on this and more right after the break.
One truth not often told is about the transformation that Africa has undergone in recent decades. Africa is shaping its own destiny and should be referred to as the African opportunity. On Spotlight Africa, we paint the African picture the African way, laced with truth, detail, and the color of the African continent. Join Uyai Anyekan every Tuesday and Thursdays at 4:30 p.m. Spotlight Africa, telling the African story.
Thanks for staying tuned. Now, South Africa's government has revoked a national state of disaster declared in February to manage a crippling electricity crisis. On February 9, President Cyril Ramaphosa invoked disaster regulations to fight the crisis that included daily rolling power cuts by state utility Eskom due to frequent breakdowns at its aging coal-fired power stations and years of corruption. The state of disaster gave the government additional powers to respond to the crisis, including by permitting emergency procurement procedures with fewer bureaucratic delays and less oversight. Cooperative Governance and Traditional Affairs COGTA Minister Thembi Nkadimang said in a statement that the government will now work through its Energy Crisis Committee to reduce the effect of power cuts using existing legislation and contingency arrangements. As part of efforts to mitigate the effect of the crisis, newly appointed Electricity Minister Kosientso Ramaphosa visited the troubled utilities power stations in recent weeks. He had consultations with the government and with Eskom aimed at resolving the electricity shortages. Kota said the government said it decided to terminate the disaster regulations in view of those developments. Now, Iran has appointed a new ambassador to the United Arab Emirates shortly ahead of an expected meeting of the foreign ministers of Iran and Saudi Arabia in China. Iranian state media confirmed yesterday that the foreign ministry has selected Reza Ameri as the new envoy to the UAE after a gap of over 7 years. Mary was reportedly the director of the Expatriates Office of the Foreign Ministry and a former ambassador to Algeria, Sudan, and Eritrea. The UAE, which has a long history of economic ties with Iran, had downgraded diplomatic relations with Tehran after Saudi Arabia closed its diplomatic missions in 2016 when demonstrators attacked them following the execution of a prominent Shia leader at the Sunni-majority kingdom. But the Saudi ally has increasingly re-engaged Iran in the past few years and appointed an ambassador to Tehran last year. Iran's move to appoint a UAE envoy came 2 days before an expected meeting between Iranian Foreign Minister Hossein Amirabdollahian and his Saudi counterpart Faisal bin Farman in Beijing on Thursday. The separate developmental judge has ordered 3 Mexican immigration officials, a private security guard, and a Venezuelan migrant be held for investigation in connection with a fire at an immigration detention center in northern Mexico that killed 40 migrants and refugees. The 4 people responsible for security at the Ciudad Juarez facility will be held on charges of homicide by omission and causing injuries, while the migrant who allegedly set the fire faces charges of homicide and causing injuries. Mexico's Federal Judiciary Council said this after Tuesday's hearing. A video from a security camera inside the facility shows guards walking away when the fire started last Monday inside the cell, holding migrants and refugees and not making any attempt to release them. It was not clear whether those guards had keys to the cell doors. More than 24 migrants and refugees were seriously injured in the fire. Away from that, voters in Wisconsin have elected Judge Janet Protasiewicz to the state Supreme Court, creating a liberal majority on the bench in a key swing state ahead of the 2024 United States presidential election. Protasiewicz defeated conservative candidate Daniel Kelly in what New York University's Brennan Center for Justice called the most expensive judicial election in U.S. history. More than $42.3 million had been spent as of Monday, according to a review by the website WizPolitics.com, far outstripping the previous record of $15.2 million. The Associated Press called the race in favor of Protasiewicz in a significant victory for abortion rights advocates. The result shifts the court to liberal control after 15 years with a 4-3 conservative majority that will likely affect several issues that have polarized Americans in other states, such as voting rights and partisan control over drawing legislative maps. But it was abortion that dominated the campaign, with the court expected in the coming months to decide whether to uphold the state's 1849 abortion ban. That law took effect after the U.S. Supreme Court's decision last year to eliminate a nationwide right to abortion. The state's Democratic Attorney General, George Cole, has challenged the statute's validity in a lawsuit backed by Democratic Governor Tony Evers. In a separate development, a tsunami warning has been triggered and evacuation order issued to coastal dwellers on a remote Philippine island after a strong earthquake struck in the ocean of the archipelago. The United States Geological Survey said that 6.2 magnitude earthquake struck in the ocean off the coast of the eastern Philippines on Tuesday around 9 p.m., about 120 kilometers from Catanduanes Island, off the main island of Luzon. Separately, now one of the world's biggest criminal marketplaces used by online fraudsters to buy passwords has been closed down in a global law enforcement crackdown. Genesis Market sold login details, IP addresses, and other data that made up victims' digital fingerprints. Often costing less than $1, the personal information let fraudsters log into bank and shopping accounts. Law enforcement agencies around the world were part of the coordinated raids, including the UK during a series of raids. The UK's National Crime Agency (NCA) arrested 24 people who are suspected users of the site. They include 2 men aged 34 and 36 in Grimsby, Lincolnshire, who are being held on suspicion of fraud and computer misuse. Law enforcement agencies from 17 countries were involved in the raids, which began at dawn on Tuesday. The operation was led by the FBI in the US and the Dutch National Police, working alongside the NCA in the UK, the Australian Federal Police, and countries across Europe. Globally, 200 searches were carried out and 120 people were arrested today. Anyone logging onto the Genesis website saw a message which read, open quote, "Operation Cookie Monster, this website," close quote. The Genesis market had 80 million sets of credentials and digital fingerprints up for sale, with the NCA calling it an enormous enabler of fraud. Dutch police have launched a portal on their website where the public can check whether their data has been compromised. And finally, on Worldview today, a week after 68-year-old TV actress Ana Obregon stormed Spain by revealing she had a baby by surrogacy in the US, she has now explained that the baby was fathered by her dead son. She told media while staying in Miami that the girl is not her daughter, but her granddaughter. Although having a woman give birth on your behalf is illegal in Spain, adopting a child born abroad is lawful. Her son died of cancer at 27, and Obregon sees the baby as her mission. Describing a conversation a week before her son died, she said this was Ales's final wish to bring a child of his own into the world. Before Ales Laqueur's death in 2020, a sample of his sperm was frozen and stored in New York. The biological mother who carried the baby is reported to be a woman of Cuban origin living in Florida. Ana Obregon's initial revelation that she had paid for surrogacy in the US prompted actress renowned for her roles in sitcoms and comedies sees the storm over the baby's birth as absurd, arguing that surrogacy is a form of assisted reproduction that is legal in much of the world beyond Spain. Surrogacy is when a woman agrees to carry and give birth to a baby on behalf of someone else. It is often, but not always, done in exchange for money. Ana Obregon explains the baby, named Ana Sandra, will be registered at the Spanish consulate before they fly to Madrid, and she refuses to rule out providing her granddaughter with a brother or sister. With that, we wrap up our package for you on Worldview today. Do ensure to follow us on social media and subscribe to our YouTube channel, all of which you can find on our website, spectrumtv.ng. My name is Xavier Roberts, reaching you live from Uyo, the capital city of Akwa Ibom State, and you have been watching Worldview on Spectrum TV. Do enjoy the rest of your day. Bye-bye for now.